Awesome. Well, thank you for members of the media for being here today. Out of an abundance of caution and in the interest of public health and safety, Lincoln Public Schools has decided to cancel all student classes and activities in our schools during the week of March 16 to 22nd. This includes all practices, rehearsals, and competitions being held during that time. All staff are being asked to report for duty Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, March 16th through 18th. This decision allows our administration and staff to make the additional plans necessary to begin to determine how we're going to move forward with regard to education in light of the COVID-19, which has now been called a pandemic. And we know that any decision involving school greatly impacts students, staff, families, as well as our community. And it's a decision we don't take lightly. With many of our students and many of our staff and many of our families having traveled during this week of spring break and returning to Lincoln today, tomorrow, over the weekend, we believe that this decision allows everyone an extra week to follow the health department's recommendations of social distancing while self-monitoring for symptoms. There's still an awful lot we don't know about this pandemic, but we have to utilize those resources that we have available to us to make sure that we do our part to slow the growth of what's occurring in our state and across our country. So our plan is to provide updates on further plans for the remainder of the semester on Friday, March 20th. I want to underscore that we're closing school for 1 week, next week, and we will use that time to develop plans to go forward. Again, the future is very uncertain. We don't have clear definition of what this represents, but we feel like taking this next week to engage in planning is in our best interest and the community's best interest. So LPS staff will continue to work with the Lincoln-Lancaster County Health Department, Nebraska Department of Education, Nebraska government officials, and the City of Lincoln to determine the best course of action going forward. We'd encourage families and staff to check the LPS website on a regular basis for more information. So the rationale for us is really by extending this period of time and understand that students are coming off of spring break, and this is another week that they're actually going to be out of school. But we feel like this gives families and students and our staff and our community an opportunity to create some social distance and to do some self-monitoring and to see what develops in the next couple of weeks with regard to the pandemic. We also, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, by having our staff here, which I want to demonstrate great appreciation for that, we're going to have to prepare for what could very well be or may not be an extended closure. I want to underscore, again, the decision to close school is for this week, next week only, and no determination has been made beyond that. We also know that we have a large number of families that are this is going to be a very, very difficult time for them. And I can assure you that a meeting that we just held in the boardroom a few minutes ago, we're going to be reaching out to those families. We know that nutrition is something that's extremely important. We're working on kind of a grab-and-go concept that we'll have greater detail to next week. We're looking at some pickup sites around the city that would be something that we would be able to at least provide some nourishment to some of those families. And we have community partners that have demonstrated a great willingness to help support for that as well, too. And again, we know the closing of school will create a hardship on a number of families. I mentioned sites. LPS Nutrition Services will unveil those sites, hopefully this weekend or the first part of next week. And anything else that we have to do, we're going to have to just plan as we go. So Monday through Wednesday with staff, and all staff, by the way, we're asking all staff to report in all departments. There's an awful lot of work that we can do, not only with regard to what's happening in the classroom for planning some digital delivery of instruction as we go forward, and we are equipped to do that due to the investment that we've made in technology and in digital resources. We feel very, very good about that. But there has to be some training and some coordination so that we're able to deliver that in a fairly efficient and in a way where it's meaningful for our students and our staff. So that's Monday through Wednesday, that training. So we want all staff to report, and only beginning Thursday and Friday, we're only going to allow the offices at the individual sites to be open. LPSDO will be open, and we'll do everything we can to conduct business as we have. And then we'll announce those sites with regard to those sites for the grab and goes. And then we've got to do a little bit of work yet on how we're going to get Chromebooks to the 2nd through 5th graders. And I am so delighted. Thank you, Lincoln. I believe we've had 13,000 or 14,000 computer bags that were donated to us from various businesses and individuals. And I can't say thank you enough for that. We did not have the ability, our 2nd through 5th graders do not take Chromebooks home. And that was a major issue for us, is how will we be able to allow that to occur if there's no place to place those bags. Everybody on our team, all of LPSDO is about to embark on something that we don't have a lot of training for. We know snow days, we know emergencies, we don't know pandemics. And so I think, again, I want to say that out of an abundance of caution, we feel like this decision next week, particularly coming off of spring break, where a lot of people have traveled all over the country and perhaps all over the world, that this gives us an opportunity to kind of catch our breath, put our plans in place, and give our students and our staff and our family and our community an opportunity to see what develops next week. And as we just learned, the president declared a national emergency. This is a very, very fluid situation that's going to continue to provide more information, as we go forward. So our role, our hope is that we can communicate and be as transparent as possible as we go forward. I will tell you that we don't have all the information. I want to thank the county health department. I want to thank the mayor and city staff. I want to thank Commissioner Bloomstead, who's the Commissioner of Education in the state. We've been in constant contact with those folks. We've been in constant contact with professionals around the state. And, again, there were a number of school closures yesterday and the day before. That didn't impact us as much as it did just us thinking about 42,000 students coming off of spring break and the unknown of what is still to develop with regard to this pandemic. We want to put ourselves in the best position to maintain the continuity of an excellent public education in Lincoln, and yet we also want to be good community contributors in terms of trying to slow down the growth of what is happening in the country that we really don't have a full understanding of. So with that, I have some of the folks that I work with, John Neal and Matt Larson and Eric Weber, that are assisting with the planning, and we'll answer any questions that you have right now, if you have any questions, and if we have any answers to those questions.
This might be a premature question since we're only a week of school closure, but should you guys, have to cancel school for the rest of the semester, you touched on the Chromebooks for the 2nd to 5th graders. Are they going to be required to finish their schoolwork?
Yeah, well, the purpose of developing a plan where we're going to be delivering education remotely is, yes, to complete assignments. We have several curriculum areas where digital resources are abundant, but we also have some areas where we're going to have to become creative. So I think that's part of what we're going to do Monday through Wednesday is create that planning. We have Google Classrooms that are a major benefit to the planning that teachers have. And how do we get that to students? We also know that students don't have Wi-Fi. We've had several companies in the community and say that if there's families that don't have Wi-Fi access, and that's something that we're going to rely on to deliver, that please call your provider. I think there's some real interest in helping us get through this for the next couple of months. So, we're going to try to make sure that all of our students have access to high quality instruction, however that's defined, through that kind of program. But if school were to be closed for an extended period of time, let's say the end of the semester, we really can't lose all this time. So that's why Monday through Wednesday is intense planning for, again, maybe it's intense planning and we're back in school the following Monday, but we don't know.
And so,
Are you putting the review material on? Do you want kids to do that this week, or?
The plan is to utilize Monday and Tuesday with staff members in the building to get as much of that material downloaded onto those machines so that when students take them home, it's already on there, and they, for at least this next week, will not require Wi-Fi access to access the review materials.
You've got kids, though, you've got 6 through 12 who've been home with their Chromebooks, or so are they gonna come in?
Our 6th through 12th grade students have had Chromebooks checked out to them for a long time. They're very used to how they use those machines, and we think they'll have the skills necessary with some direction from us to be able to access the review
So
materials.
they'll be able to get that, and then will you make arrangements for those families who don't have Wi-Fi then?
We're currently working with a couple of different community providers who have shown an interest in providing that access. We're not prepared to make those announcements yet, but we hope by the time we get to next Wednesday, we'll be able to do that.
What was the turning point in the past 24 to 48 hours where your office said, this is the decision that we have to hand down, and made that was clear?
A number of things. We're following, the state news, of course. We've attended a lot of press conferences. We've had a lot of conversations. I think at the end of the day, it really was, we're coming off of spring break, the uncertainty of, what our students have been doing, what our staff's been doing. I think there's a lot of concern amongst staff, amongst students, among parents, that that this is a scary time, and one of the words that I'm using, this is unprecedented, right? We've not had anything of this to this extent, and so naturally, people are responding to what they're reading, what they're hearing, and I think behaviors are slowly becoming altered, which I think is going to be a very positive thing. But it's just best right now to not have school coming off of spring break, give us a chance to kind of recalibrate and give our families a chance to recalibrate. And then hopefully, again, our hope is that we get good information, and it isn't as bad as what some may think. And if we can have school next week, the week after, that's our goal. We want to continue to have school. So the tipping point for us has been just the news accounts, the number of community spreads up in the Omaha area. From what I can understand, while there hasn't been an identified case in Lincoln, testing is now just underway, and we're a pretty mobile city. There's an awful lot of people that have been out and about in infected cities, and so I mean, that's been the big thing, and part of the reason we're a little bit. Some would say, why are you waiting till today? Others made the decision earlier. We felt like we just needed to get as much information as we could before we made this kind of decision, because we can't take this lightly. There's 42,000 students, almost 8,000 staff that are impacted by this, and a community, a dynamic community that's going to rely. I mean, people are going to have to accommodate now for students that are home, and workers that are going to want to be home with their children. So, I want to underscore again, we don't take this lightly, and as we talked many times, that's a consideration and a factor. And it's in some ways, snow days cause that kind of an emergency adjustment as well too. But I want to say this is not a snow day. This is not one of those things that students look forward to just because they think that that it's built into the calendar, right? So there's nothing along these lines that's built into the calendar. So we feel like any instructional time we're losing is important, and that we are going to figure out a way to deliver that with as much fidelity and integrity as we can, so that our students maintain pace that they're on academically.
Talk about the students, you also have 8,000 staff, faculty that you have here. Pay is a big question that we're seeing. You have those employees coming in next week, but down the road you have the bus drivers along those lines.
Right.
What is
Yep.
the decision in that line?
And that's a great question too, and I would tell you again, that's part of our decision to not take this lightly, right? So we've scheduled an emergency school board meeting on Wednesday to have that conversation. You know, we don't really have the authority to pay people to not work. And so it's really about what are those tasks going to be. And, you know, again, we have wonderful, wonderful people in our employ, and, you know, we want to make sure that we can find ways to make that a valuable experience for both the district and the community and our folks. But again, that's an uncertain area for us to get into. I will tell you, Monday through Wednesday, all approximately 8,000 employees, you know, are going to be at work, and they'll have tasks. We're going to be doing deep cleaning of our buildings and our buses and our vehicles, and, you know, it's going to be all hands on deck Monday through Wednesday.
As a school board, can you guys commit to making those payments for those employees after this upcoming week, or is that something you mentioned you're discussing in that Wednesday?
I think, well, yeah, I can't, that would be, there's a legal basis to that, and I think that's the purpose of the meeting that we're going to have with the board to see what our options are. And, you know, I'm hoping too by Wednesday things are a little bit clearer in terms of, you know, where we stand.
Staffing wise, say a number of teachers have to be self-quarantined due to potential exposure. Do you have enough substitute teachers, people to fill in to continue to teach the children?
Well, a lot's going to depend on how many of those teachers or staff members are not able to come. And by the way, I want to emphasize, and my team will attest to, you know, there's no more, no longer, and I'm hoping this is a social change, that if people are not feeling well, they're not trying to fight through that at work. You know, that we have to, that's our personal contribution to society, is to stay home when we're sick. So, you know, as I've been reading story after story about, you know, what this virus represents, you know, it's a cough, it's you know, you're feeling aches and pains, and in a lot of ways it looks like flu, or feels like flu, but it's quite a bit more dramatic. So we have substitute teachers, you know, and flu hits us hard every year, but, you know, the regular flu is still out there right now, which is why I think, you know, we've heard that from one of the concerns with this virus across the country is that the medical system, you know, they really have to be worried about overload if in fact it gets to the point that we've heard about in Europe and in the Asian continent. And one way to perhaps help that is by not having large areas where 42,000 students are gathered, you know, spread out over a city. So, yeah, I think we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Dr. Weber's done a great job, his team, and we've got a great group of substitute teachers. But you never know. I mean, you know, one other statistic that we've been looking at a little bit too is we've been thinking about this whole virus is who are the most vulnerable, right? So we've done some data analysis and have heard many times through the media, you know, the over 60 population is the most vulnerable. People with underlying medical issues are vulnerable. And, you know, we have a pretty good percentage of our people that work for us that are over the age of 62, so we have to be concerned with that. But unlike what we've done in the past, if we had a school that was impacted by the flu and we had a run on teacher absences and a lot of kids absent, we could close a school down pretty easily. This is much more global in terms of an entire city. So it's not one where we can say, yep, it's over there. My understanding, and I'm not in the medical profession, is that this is very infectious, and that people can carry this and without even knowing that they have symptoms. So we want to be cognizant of that as well too. And I'll stand here and say, looking forward to more information coming out in the next few days that'll help guide our decisions, because we want to have school. We don't want to not have school.
And for students' attendance, should they have to be quarantined as well? That's 14 days,
Right.
if not longer.
Yes.
Are they going to be held to the same attendance policy?
No, they won't. And we're still working on details of that, but we would say this: they'll come to school, don't worry about the attendance policy, be truthful and honest with regard to, you know, why you're home. No, you have to make up the work at some point, but in terms of attendance, we know that we're going to be in a zone right now where we're going to have to look at that differently, and we will. And the same thing with teachers as well. You know, I mean, we don't want anybody coming to work, assuming that we get back to work, that isn't feeling well.
Will there be be an extra added week at the end of this semester for the week that they're missing.
Yeah, boy, you really want to pin me down on that one, don't you? So that would be very difficult to do, which is why we're doing Monday through Wednesday to put ourselves in position to deliver digitally. That'll be our goal going forward. You know, the Commissioner of Education, Matt Bloomstead, I mean, we have very, very strict standards of accreditation. And, you know, that's going to have to be looked at the state level as well, too, in terms of seat minutes. And clearly, when kids aren't in school, you know, we're not meeting that seat minute requirement. But we have a great Commissioner of Education. We have a great State Board of Education. They understand what we're dealing with. And I don't have any worries about going forward having that conversation. Any other questions?
I was going to just, final one for me is you got students and staff, obviously, that have questions. What's the easiest way for them to just meet some of those things that they may have,
Okay.
you know, they're curious
Well,
about?
thank you. LPS.org. We're trying to keep our information as current as we can on a regular basis, and we will update. And then Let's Talk, which is on our front page of our website. If there's a specific question, I don't know if people that are listening or watching this today are familiar with that, but on our website you have the ability to ask any question you want anonymously, and it will get to a person inside either the district or the building, and you'll get an answer within 48 hours. So, you know, we will do our level best to stay on top of that. I will ask that, you know, I know there's a lot of questions, I know there's a lot of concerns. You know, these are unprecedented times. And, you know, as I mentioned, our staff, you know, we have to provide leadership to try to get through this. But in a lot of ways, it's, you know, we're going to be building this plan as we go because there is no template. You know, again, we don't have any experience with pandemics. But I do know this, in this community with the folks that we have that are policymakers and those that are engaged in public and private, we're going to get through this, and, you know, we're going to get back to normal, I think, faster than people might expect. But and that's where we're going to put our trust. So I feel like we've been given great information to date, and we make the best decision that we can, and we can't worry about what other schools do or, you know, what other recommendations might be. I know there's differences of opinion on this, but, you know, again, we all know that we have 42,000 students, 8,000 staff members we're responsible for, and this seems like the best decision going forward. All right, thanks very much.